Hello children, today we are going to start chapter number 16, that is second chapter of our economics section. The title of the chapter is Economic Liberalization and Globalization. Here we are going to see mainly two factors or two concepts related to the new economic policy, that was implemented in India in 1991. See, when India became independent in 1947, our government accepted the path of planning to achieve speedy economic development. Okay, so our government started the 5-year plan to get the speedy economic development of that particular time. It took over the charge of achieving speedy development by implementing 5-year plans. Say they implemented the 5-year plans. Now 5-year plans are borrowed or are taken from Russia. They are a gift of Russia, or they are borrowed from Russia. That is implemented, the policy implemented by Russia, and we have also accepted such kind of policy for a speedy economic development. One after other, okay. Now monetary policy, fiscal policy, and industrial policies have been announced for this. Now monetary policy means policy related to money. Policy related to money. Fiscal policy is basically policy related to import and export, right? And the industrial policy is policy related to the development of the industries. Although many of these plans were completed successfully, was not attaining achievement was not attaining in achieving economic development in true sense. In spite of implementing all these things, there was not a development that was needed. Hereby government investigated the causes of failure. Okay, they tried to find out what were the causes of the failure and determined to give a new form to economic policy in order to rectify the errors done in the past. Now for the understanding of the background, we need to understand that in 1980s India was under a severe economic crisis. Okay, and due to that it had a very large debt on its head, and due to that it had to take help of IRDB. It had to take help of IRDB. IRDB is popularly known as World Bank. Okay, and World Bank or IRDB, International Reconstruction and Development Bank, gave a loan of $7 billion, to India. Okay, now when it gave this loan, it also asked India to accept this particular new economic policy for a better growth of economy. Okay, now what does this new economic policy included? Then it included liberalization, privatization, and globalization under it. Now this policy was launched, or rather implemented, in the year 1991. Okay, to be exact, it was on 24th July that this policy was implemented. Okay, and it was implemented by P.V. Narasimha Rao. Okay, such economic reforms were implemented which could strengthen economy. See, the new economic policy was such kind of policy which helped to strengthen the economic development of India, which are known as liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So we are going to see each of them, advantages, disadvantages, and benefits of it into the section. The first one, economic liberalization. Okay, government gradually reduced the restriction. Now what is liberalization? Now liberalization means freedom. Liberalization basically means freedom. Freedom in what? Then freedom in rules and regulations. Okay, it started giving freedom in rules and regulation. After independence, India had accepted a very strong and strict, okay, economic policy, right? But in 1991, as I already told you, after the help of IRDB, India had to be liberal. Okay, India had to be liberal in its policies, and that was known termed as economic liberalization. Say, government gradually reduced the restriction and control imposed on private sector. Say, okay, as I told you, that was a very strict economic policy, and that's why private was not allowed much. Private companies were not supported much. Mainly, there are two kinds of companies, you can say. One is private and second is public. Public is the government companies. Okay, so after independence, the public sector was given more importance in comparison to private sector, but there were a lot of issues in it, and due to that there were a lot of problems into the government and economy. So what did the government do in economic liberalization? That they reduced the control imposed in private sector and encourage economic development. This is known as economic liberalization. Basically, economic liberalization is giving freedom or giving flexibility into the economic policies. Main economic reforms related to liberalization which were made in the earlier period were as follow. Okay, so main economic liberalization were as follow. First, there was reservation for 18 industries. Okay, government previously government was having a lot of industries under its control, right? But now government was asking private companies to enter into this industry. There were mainly five industries that were considered very important or key industry. One was arms. Arms means weapons. Arm means weapons. Second was atomic. Second was atomic. Third was mineral oils. Okay. Fourth was railway. And fifth was mining. So these were the five industries that were mainly under the government right now. Okay. Other all were allowed for private companies to enter into those industries. Okay, they were allowed to enter into those industries. Areas under railway, see, areas other than railway, atomic, and defense were open for private sector. See, okay, this five were kept under government controls. Other all were open. Right now, only and only railway. Right now, only and only railway and atomic are kept under government. All other sectors are allowed for private participation. Next, traditional tradition of compulsory registration of industry was cancelled. Previously, the registration process was very hard, and due to that, it was very hard for someone to start a industry. And now this process was made easier. Fourth, provision to take government permission for setting up industry which does not cause pollution and are not hazardous to environment cancel. So, if you want to start a industry, the process was made easy. The process was made easy. So you can say the process of entering of private enterprise and setting up of industry was known as the economic liberalization. Now what were the advantages? Now what were the advantages of economic liberalization? Okay, see, as a result of liberalization, private sector had got an opportunity to make unconstrained means uncontrolled development which led to increase in production. Okay, now private industries are more organized, more developed, and they have more technologies with them. And so when private industries were allowed into public sector, the development was faster and it led to a greater production. Second, because of accepting policy of liberalization, global trade started getting an impetus. See, okay, along with liberalization, we are going to study later on another thing, that was globalization also came into existence, and due to that, India started trading with all other nations of the world. Okay, so global trade started to get a great impetus. Our import and export developed a lot. They started getting an impetus, and there have been increase in global trade. Because of increase in foreign trade, there have been increase in reserve of foreign exchange. See, now as we started trading with other countries, due to that, the increase in reserve of foreign exchange here means currency, okay, or money. Okay, now take example, like suppose India sends, say, fertilizers to USA. Now USA will pay back India in dollars. Okay, in dollars. So this will help India to grow the foreign exchange reserve. Okay, grow more dollars, or it will collect more dollars for India. Now when India buys or purchases, suppose say, any machine from USA, okay, when it sends machine, suppose a machine from USA, then India has to pay back America in dollars. It has to pay back America in dollars, and due to this, the reserve which India has will help India to pay faster and easier. Okay, and due to that, the foreign exchange is a great advantage of liberalization. Fourth, internal infrastructure facilities increase. Internal infrastructure facilities like rail, then transport, okay, then dams, hospitals, and etc. All these things also increased a lot. There are also disadvantages of it. What are the disadvantages of liberalization that we are going to see? Say, in spite of decrease in restriction, monopoly continued. Now understand this word monopoly. Monopoly means one person's rule. Okay, now monopoly was there. Monopoly means a country which, or a company which is the only company which produces the thing, and due to that, it can take whatever amount of money or whatever amount of price it wants, it can take from the customer. So monopoly still it was there, right? And due to that, the customers were exploited were exploited. Second, as focus has only been paid on industrial sector, India remained backward in development of agriculture. Say, as for faster development, the industrial sector was mainly concentrated, and due to that, the agriculture field remained backward, and that took India into a more miserable condition. Third, there have been increase in disparity of income. Disparity is gap of income. Okay, here what happened, due to this industrial sector, the rich became richer while the poor became poorer, and due to this, there was a very big gap between this rich and poor. This was one of the disadvantage of liberalization. Because of increase in imports and decrease in export, foreign debt increasing. Increase in import. Okay, now import. Import means to buy things from other countries. Okay, while export is to sell things to other countries. Okay, now what happened here? You need to understand. India, what India was exporting? India was exporting expensive things like machines, okay, then communication equipments, okay, then transportation equipments, all these things. These were very expensive things. While what India was actually exporting or means selling things like fertilizers, okay, then seeds, then handicraft. This all were cheap, okay, and due to that what happened is India had to pay more when at the end of the year when the balancing was done. When the balancing was done, okay, just imagine the export and import. Now India imported say 10 100 rupees and it has exported say 50 rupees. Then when the balancing is done at the end, India have to give 50 rupees for the adjustment. This is just for an example. Okay, so 50 rupees for adjustment, and due to that the foreign reserve which was with India started decreasing because we have to pay money to them rather than take money from the foreign nation. Okay, so due to this the debt means udhar, debt means, right, udhar started increasing. It started increasing, and due to that India became more poor in comparison to the past.